Welcome to the Healing Place podcast, a space filled with inspirational stories of hope, along with practical advice for your healing journey. Your host is Teri Wellbrock, trauma warrior, writer, speaker, blogger, therapy dog handler, and founder of the Sammy's Bundles of Hope project. As a survivor and a thriver, Teri's mission is to shine the light of hope into the world by interviewing insightful guests from across the globe. Please stay tuned at the end of today's interview as we honor our sponsors. The Healing Place podcast is a fiscally sponsored project of Fractured Atlas. Now, here's your host and trauma warrior, Teri Wellbrock.
Welcome everybody to the Healing Place podcast, another Facebook Live conversation. Happy to have you here with us. And just in case you type in comments, I get so engaged in the conversations, I don't look at the comments, and we're streaming over from Zoom. So just please know I will answer any comments or questions, and Stacy can always come and answer some questions and comments. But I just wanted to let you know, feel free to ask things or say anything. And we will certainly get back with you after our interview. So I am very excited to have with me yet again, Stacy Brookman. So welcome, Stacy.
Hey, Teri, how are you? I'm just really excited to be here and just really thrilled you're doing this. This is just amazing
Thank you
stuff.
so much. Thanks. Well, I've been so excited by the feedback. I've done a lot of these pandemic self-care conversations, and the views have been incredible. I think, did I say over 100,000 views? I can't remember what the numbers are, but it's just been so wonderful and awesome to have so many people
are seeking out help, right? And you're providing it. So I love that.
Thanks so much. Well, and you certainly offer it. And this is why I'm so glad we're connecting again. You and I had a conversation, it's probably been 2 years ago, on the podcast. So I'm sure you've been up to a lot of wonderful, amazing work like you do. So so talk to people about what it is you've been up to.
Yeah, so I am working on, my podcast is Real Life Resilience, Stories of Recovery from Life's Most Difficult Trauma. And I actually have paused that for a little bit, and I'm doing a YouTube. My YouTube channel is growing. And so I do a resilience this week, just a pathway for people to say, okay, what are some new or unique ways that I can become more resilient, especially after or through emotional abuse? And so that's really my forte, is how do you get that trauma out of your head? And for me, it's all about writing, getting that out and writing it. And I do that in a variety of different ways. But one of them is that I invited you onto my Emotional Abuse Recovery and Resilience Summit. So I don't just talk about that trauma, and especially emotional abuse. I talk about, how do you recover? How do you become an amazing, resilient, strong person after or through that sort of experience? Because, I experienced that too about 10 years ago. And so the summit continues, like anybody can go there and get all of the interviews and your interview with me as well. That's at emotionalabusesummit.com. And then my latest venture, I am teaching people actually how to write about their tough stuff, but not only how, but why, because there's a lot of scientific evidence that writing about those tough times in your life is incredibly healing. And so I created the Life Story Laboratory to be able to help people and guide people through writing those tough times and understanding the science behind it. And some of them, if they choose, they craft their stories, and I teach them how to craft them beautifully, but also if they want to eventually publish, then they can choose to do that.
Yeah, how beautiful. Well, one, I feel so honored to be among the guests that you've had on the summit, which is just an incredible collection of trauma warriors and healers and people who have survived and or are working to help others.
Like an attorney is on there. I mean, we have counselors, therapists, we have people who are experts like Donna Anderson, who's the creator of Love Fraud, and just all different kinds of folks on there. It's just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is just, it's not just so much about surviving, but thriving. And I think that's
Yes,
your message very much so, is that
exactly.
you don't just have to get through what happened in the days,
Yeah,
but you can blossom.
right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Because I mean, I did. I'm like, I was slogging through life for 10 years with an emotionally abusive spouse, and it was not fun. I didn't even know that's what it was. I didn't even have those words. And it's crazy once you start learning about this stuff, and you're like, oh, when I had the word narcissist, or I had the word sociopath, then I could start Googling and figuring out, okay, what is this? How do you deal with it? Like, what in the world? And the best thing about this experience, and one of the interviews in there is, what does this make possible? So what did that experience make possible for me was to be able to be a more resilient and more joy-filled person, because I've gone through it, and just be able to figure out how to do that, and being able to share it with others is a thrill.
Yeah, wonderful. I love it. And I know I went through the same thing once I started to discover these words of, I had a very toxic friendship, and ghosting, and gaslighting, and all of those
Yes,
words, that you start to understand, and you look back and go, oh, now I see what
that's
was
what it was.
happening.
Because
Yeah,
you start to think you're crazy. You start to think, oh my gosh, is it me? Did I really say that, or did I really not say that? I thought I said that. And it is crazy. And you know what? During this time of the pandemic, it gets even worse. Like, because you're
yeah,
thrown into even more conflict, or more situations with that person. So it can be even more incredibly difficult.
yes. Well, that's what predictions are saying, that calls have gone down because uh, women are, or partners, I guess, whoever, it
Mm-hmm.
can be men as well, are
Yeah.
stuck and can't get out, or don't feel that they can get out of it
Yeah, or they
because,
don't have any privacy, far
right.
less privacy, or times or places to call. And of course, like for mine had put a tracker on my computer, so I couldn't even type in things. I didn't realize it until later, but
Yeah.
you just don't have privacy. Often your own phone is not private. They'll look at it and things like that. So
Right.
although I'll just tell you, the hotline is the hotline.org, the National Abuse Hotline. When you go to that and you exit out, it exit like they have a X button at the top. You exit out, and it takes it out of your history,
So no
as if you
history.
never. Yeah. So I always like to share that with people. Where's my? Hold on, I have the. Uh, it's the hotline.org. Just in case anybody needs to, it's 1-800-799-7233. I always like to share that, because if you're curious about it, you want to know, how do I get out, or what, if you have an emergency, or maybe you don't have an emergency just yet, but you're like, okay, where are some shelters? What do I do? How do I get out ahead of time? You can go to thehotline.org, and then as soon as anybody walks in the room, you just click that X, and it wipes it off your computer. So I love that.
Wonderful. Well,
Yeah.
I know in watching some of the summit speakers, they addressed that,
Mm-hmm.
like the steps you can utilize to
Yeah.
getting yourself safe, which is the priority. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. I actually have been recently doing a series on my YouTube channel on it's under resilience this week, but it's not every video, but some of those videos are all about, how do you prepare yourself financially? A lot of people are like, I don't know if I can survive outside of this marriage financially. There are ways, absolutely ways. Or what if I don't have any friends or family to support me? Because often in these type of abusive relationships, you are alienated from your friends, your family, or they start love bombing your family, that your partner does, and so they're believing that person more than you. So you feel like you're in a bubble all by yourself, and you don't have any help. There are ways to start building that support system.
Yeah.
And so lots of great stuff in there.
Yeah, for sure. Wonderful. All right. So any other things that you wanted to address as far as the pandemic and some self-care strategies?
Yeah. So what I discovered myself when I was going through that crazy time, I was divorcing a sociopath. And like I thought living with a sociopath was bad, not even knowing that's what it was. But when I started though that the divorce, it was of course long and drawn out. It was just very, very tough, that back and forth. Oh, let's collaborate, let's make this a good time. Oh no, we're not. I didn't agree to that. It was that
Yeah.
just up and down emotional abuse, really what it was. When you are going through stress like that, you get a lot of brain fog. And of course, you're being gaslit. You don't know, like, I thought I did that, or I thought I said that, and just all kinds of stuff. So one of the things that I did when I was going through that was to start writing down what happened or what I said, or, those events, just in little short, my attorney had recommended that, just little short, non-emotional, here's what happened, here's what I said, here's what happened, here's what he said, that sort of thing, just to
Yeah.
kind of jog your mind. Okay, this is what actually happened. Because when you write it down right after, then you're not thinking up something. And then at the time, I had a birthday and my parents gave me some money, and I thought, I'm going to spend this on me. Usually as moms, we don't usually
Right.
spend stuff
Right.
on, even gift money. We spend it on our kids or family. But I needed something that wasn't a divorce, that wasn't the kids, wasn't my job, that was just for me. This was
Right.
like one of the very first self-care steps that I took. Looking back, I just haven't realized it, but that it was actually one of the very first steps. And I took a memoir class because I was just curious about writing and things like that. That changed my life. So what happened was I would start writing these crazy stories, and they taught me, and this is the what I teach in Life Story Laboratory, is how to write those stories, how to take events in your life and craft them into an amazing story. And so I would bring these stories every Friday to this group, and they couldn't fix things for me, and I wasn't asking them to, but they couldn't fix things, but they could hold my story in their hands with care and concern, and just be with me in that moment. And that was the most amazing thing. And I started realizing, scientists have known this for years, that writing about that tough stuff, writing through those tough moments, is incredibly healing. So that
Yes.
brain fog started to fade. I realized through this writing, how in the world did me, a professional woman, end up in an abusive relationship? I'm like, how does that happen? What in the world?
Right.
But I got to see clearly, okay, here's what happened, here are the steps. And I can look back with compassion on myself, right? I was in that particular frame of mind. I was doing the best I could at that moment with what I knew. And I started learning all kinds of things about myself. Like, I have some superpowers. And when you're in an abusive relationship, especially when you're thrown into close quarters, like a lot of couples are right now, you get beaten down, and sometimes physically, emotionally, for sure, mentally, psychologically. And what writing does is it starts to help you see the truth. And the truth is that you are good, you are capable, you are strong, you do have superpowers. And I absolutely love that. And that's when I started doing some research about the psychological benefits of life story writing, and writing through these tough times and about these tough times. So a lot of people will say, oh, just get that's past, let it go, bury it, don't think about it, get past that. And I say, and a lot of scientists say, don't just bury it, because what happens when you go through trauma, what happens is those memories are stored in a different part of your brain than regular memories. And so what you're going through right now, what you've been through in the past, what started this, even back to childhood.
Yes.
That's in this, whatever traumas, and it could be all different. Everybody's trauma is different, right? All of those are stored in this part of your brain where it hides from you until it's triggered and it comes out. And then you act as an adult, you react to that as an adult as if you were like 16 or 8 or whatever, and not realizing what you're doing and how it could harm you, like staying in an abusive relationship, or just allowing somebody to belittle you and thinking, well, if I was just better, or if I had just cooked that dinner a little bit, I should have known he wanted spaghetti instead of chicken or something. You start to question yourself. So when you write and when you get this stuff out, first of all, you see, wait a minute, people have different stuff for dinner all the time. Why am I fretting over that? And that's just one example, but there are all kinds of examples. And then you start to see, okay, wait a minute, maybe it's not me, and maybe you're not ready to call it abuse. I call it tough relationships, but that is emotional abuse. When you start writing and you get that out of your head, what it does is it takes those memories and it puts them in the other part of your brain where memories are meant to be stored, right? And then they fade just like regular memories. And I love that part of it. I started discovering that when I did some research. I'm like, wow, that's why I am a much better person. I am much more resilient. I am much more joyful. Even though I've gone through this terrible stuff, or I'm in the middle of going through this terrible stuff, I was so at peace, and I could see the steps I needed to continue getting out, and I could see I'm going to be okay. And that's just a beautiful thing. Started taking care of myself in a much better manner. And that was all because of writing. And so when I figured this out, I'm like, everybody needs to know. Everybody needs to know about writing and its
Yeah.
healing.
Oh, for sure. I think we just recently moved from Ohio to South Carolina. And so obviously purging and boxing and packing and just found another box because we were almost completely unpacked, but we have, still a pile. And I opened it up and I was like, oh, journals. Well, I probably have 25 different journals that, I was active with, because I had like my Blue Day journal and my goals journal and my dreams journal and, everyday daily journal, because you're right. Just getting it out and processing that is, well, when I, went through my trauma through EMDR, it was a matter of taking traumatic events that I had not processed because I wasn't emotionally equipped to handle what was happening to me as a child. Once we started that processing, and I journaled through all of that therapy and wrote about it. I mean, writing a book and it's amazing what happens along the healing journey when you share your truths.
It is because, and as you write, and you probably discovered even more truths, because as human beings, we have a huge capacity for pulling the wool over our own eyes. And it really is designed to protect ourselves, right? Because there's this cognitive dissonance. I believe in people being, treating each other well, but he is not treating me well. So I must ignore that and think everything is going to be fine, or everything is fine. And so you have that. And so your brain's like, that doesn't compute. So let's just hide that in the back. Right. And that's just a simplified way of explaining it. But your brain hides it from you for a reason. And then for a time. But when it's ready, when you start to write, and it's okay if you don't even want to write or don't want to write some of those things, you can write around the edges of them, which I love. And so you're going to find out that, wow, this is maybe what happened. Are you going to start finding new things about yourself? I found out, like, I lowered my standards. I lowered my morals. I'm like, ugh, I don't like that. I don't want people to know that. And in fact, one of the things, I never wrote in a journal for a long time, because whenever I would start, I knew how healthy it was. Or I knew how people were like, this is so great. But what I was afraid of is all I could write was negative stuff. And I was thinking, if people found this later on down the road, they're just going to think I'm an awful person. And so what you need to do is just write to get that junk out of your head. Just you don't even worry about sentence structure or capitalization or spelling or anything else. Just get it out in junk, because then later you can pull different things and you can craft it into amazing stories of strength and learning and things like that as you are healing. So I am very much an advocate of writing about and through those stuff, because instead of just putting it back in the back of your head, writing releases those tough stories. So they lose their power over you. Like you literally have power writing those words out or typing them. There's a lot of people that say you've got to write. I believe writing by hand is absolutely amazing. But for me, I can type very, very fast and my brain just goes so fast. It's easier for me to get it out. And so that's what I did. I know there are a lot of people who advocate just writing by hand. Either way is fine with me. When you do that, you are going to create a resilience that defies the boundaries of what your experiences have been. And you're going to learn wisdom that you're going to start utilizing those wisdoms that you discovered and that you learned, but you hadn't been implemented because they're hidden from you. And that's one of the key things is I love it, because like, wait a minute, I have learned a lot of lessons. It's not just a bad situation that I've just gotten through and now I need to move on with my life. I learned some things and I hadn't yet implemented them. And so that's really, really cool.
Yeah, I love it. And, forgiveness was one of the biggest things I learned, I think, was just what a healing for my own self. It wasn't about, giving peace to perpetrators or some people who had hurt me, but for myself.
Or even accepting what they did.
Yeah.
No, it's not about that at all.
No. Not justifying the behavior.
Not justifying.
But,
but for goodness, it is. It is just so releasing. And you can do that when you write. And
Well, and another thing I think that brings up a good point is, many people are afraid, I can't write. What if the person finds it?
Mm-hmm.
So I know I did a lot of write and burn, and just release that way. Or there's online where you can password protect. I mean, I think there's just other ways that you can,
I'll tell you a couple of things I did, and it's different if you have a computer. So if you have a computer, take it to a computer place to see if there's a keystroke logger or some sort of program on it. If it is, that computer is not safe, or you need to get that off or get a new computer or do something to wipe that out, and then protect it and never let it, like, I would leave the room, and I caught him my ex one time on my computer. And so what they can do is have it go to, like, all the keystrokes you do go to some place on their computer. Anyway, once it's wiped cleaner, once you have a very safe computer, you can type emails to yourself. Like I used to type emails to myself, or I used to have a BlackBerry, would type emails and just get some of those stories out, even if they were just half sentences or partial or whatever, and send them to my work email. And I was able to do that. And then when I went to work, I was able to collect them and use a Google Drive there. If you're not able to do that, you can also send text messages or put notes on your phone. And as long as that is also password protected. And there's lots of different ways. You can send it to a friend or family member and just say, hey, if it has this in the title, don't even look at it, just save it for me, or something. So there are lots of different ways you can get that story out, and it helps you heal.
Yeah, for sure. Beautiful. All right. So how do people connect with you? They can do writing courses with you? Yes.
So we are starting another cohort of a Life Story Laboratory. You can see what that's all about, lifestorylaboratory.com. And if you are interested in writing your stories and having a cohort, a group of people who've also been through some of these tough times go along with you. It's a very safe, very caring space of like-minded people. And you don't even have to give your regular name. You can choose a fake name if you want. So it's very, very safe. Or if you're interested in learning more about the Emotional Abuse Summit, you can go to emotionalabusesummit.com and you can see Teri. There are actually 45 different interviews in there that you will have immediate access to. And it's like, how do you parent through divorcing a narcissist? How do you rebuild yourself after you've been through a tough relationship? What are some of the tips and tricks that they try to trick you with? I mean, there's just so many. How do you reset your boundaries? That's a big one.
That's a big one. Yeah.
I was afraid if I started having boundaries, he would get angry. And then I just realized, wait a minute, if he's angry, why do I care? Because that's one of the things that clicked for me. Wait a minute. He's in control of his own anger. I'm not in control of his anger. If he's angry, that's his problem, right? And so you'll discover so many things. It'll show you all those different speakers on there. And then StacyBrookman.com is where I give out free information, and that's my website. There's my podcast and blogs and stuff on there. And my YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/real-life-resilience, and lots of great videos on there as well.
Yeah, for sure. I've watched them, and I think it's just, your collection of interviews, your collection of the work you're doing is just beautiful and amazing. And I thank you. I'm so glad we're connected.
It is fun. I love sharing this information. So thank you. And I hope everyone here starts writing their stories. And even if it's tough, even if it's embarrassing, you never, ever, ever have to share it with anybody, but it's going to heal you.
Yes, for sure. Amen. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you again, Stacy, for all the work you do and for joining us here today on Facebook Live for the Healing Place podcast.
You are welcome. Excited. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. Until next time, remember, be gentle with yourself. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening today to the Healing Place podcast with your host and trauma warrior, Teri Wellbrock. If you enjoyed this episode and want to learn more about Teri, her mission, and the Hope for Healing journey, visit Teri's website at www.teriwellbrock.com. Thank you for liking, commenting, sharing, and offering your reviews on our YouTube channel, audio outlets, and Facebook page. And as Teri reminds us, until next time, remember, be gentle with yourself.